Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. According to research, there are over 40 million households just in America alone who own a dog. I'm sure that many people listening right now have dogs of their own. Anybody that does knows how important it is to take them on walks regularly. Some people walk their dogs in local streets or neighborhoods, or even dog parks. It's always possible for scary things to happen during them. In today's video, you will hear some true and creepy tales from dog walkers who listened to the channel and wrote in their own experiences. But before we start, I want to say thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. Raid is the first game to bring a true console-level experience to your phone. With over 600 champions blessed with unique skills, you can build your team, develop your champions, and raid your way. An amazing addition to the game is the Doom Tower. This game mode introduced a whole world of new and terrifying bosses to slay. Sprawling over 120 levels, the Doom Tower brought exciting new challenges for seasoned players. This month, Raid's got a non-stop schedule of special events and activities, including Forge Pass Season 3. There will also be awesome champion skins for the incredible Madame Saris. And later this month, Raid is giving everyone's favorite champion the upgrade he deserves. That's right, Death Knight is becoming a legendary champion. I invite you all to join the party. This is the best time to get started in Raid, and if you click my link in the description or scan my QR code, you'll get unique bonuses worth $30, a free epic champion, Vergis, 200k silver, 1 energy refill and 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon awesome champions right away. All this treasure will be waiting for you. Download Raid Shadow Legends in the link below. I own a 3-year-old lab named Brian. I walk Brian almost every day. He's a dog with a lot of energy and loves to go to the park and run around. What I'm about to tell you took place about 3 months ago. I was walking Brian one night after I got home from work. I had some things to do after work, so I got home a little bit later than usual. Still, I wanted to make sure that I gave Brian his walk. We left the house and went on the normal route that we would take. It was down our street and then left to a connecting street, which went to a park. Inside the park, there was a little field and then a path through the woods. When we got to the park, I ran around with Brian a little. I kept jogging into the path that went into the woods, and we went a ways until there was a bench on the side of the path. Then I stopped for a couple of minutes to catch my breath. Brian was panting as well. As I was sitting on the bench, I looked at my phone and saw that one of my friends was texting me. I went to respond, but as I was typing, Brian suddenly started barking and tugging at his leash. At first, I assumed it was just a squirrel or something. Although Brian is usually very well behaved, sometimes he will get really excited when seeing a squirrel or another animal. I finished sending my text, then looked at what Brian was barking at. I didn't see a squirrel, and I told Brian to calm down. I figured whatever animal he was after had ran into the woods. There were thick woods on both sides of the path, and just a few feet behind the bench I was sitting on. Brian kept barking though, and it seemed as though he was barking in the direction of a large tree just inside the woods. I stood up and walked over to it. I looked around the woods and listened. It was strange because it was very quiet and I didn't see or hear anything. I tried to help Brian calm down, but as I bent down to the ground and got to a lower angle, I now saw something. It was coming from the tree right in front of my face. There was a man ducked down, mostly behind the tree, looking at me. We were only about 5 feet away, and a creepy grin started to slowly fill his face. I jumped back and quickly stood up. Brian and I started walking away. When we did, I heard the trees and bushes at the edge of the woods start moving. It seemed as though the man was following us in our direction. I went back to a jog with Brian, and we ran all the way through the rest of the woods back to the park. The sun was almost completely set now, and it was getting dark. I didn't want to stop back and look at all to see if the guy was following us. On the rest of the way home, I didn't hear anything more behind us and was feeling better about things. It wasn't until we had reached our street that I stopped and looked back. When I did, there was the guy again, standing in the middle of the road about 100 feet back. He began walking towards us and was still smiling. I ran with Brian back home and got inside quickly. When we got inside, I locked all the doors and closed all the windows and blinds. It was less than 10 minutes later that I started to hear somebody banging loudly on the back door of the house. Brian started barking, and the banging continued on for a good 10 minutes or so. I didn't answer it, and I brought Brian into my room with me. Eventually, the knocking stopped, and I think the guy left. After that, I never saw him again, but it creeps me out knowing that he knows where I live. I'm a female, and last year I took my dog to the dog park. I have a little terrier named Zoe. We live just a few blocks away from a dog park, so I often walk over there with her and let her run around. I remember one day, it was a Saturday morning, and we left my apartment complex and went over to the dog park. I was going somewhere later that day, so I wanted Zoe to be able to get out and get some exercise. When we arrived, I saw that it was pretty busy, being a weekend and all. We got inside, and Zoe started running around. I sat down and watched her. The dog park was pretty big, and it was like one massive fenced-in area with some trees. I was just looking around enjoying the morning, and I took notice of some of the other dogs there, as well as owners. The longer I sat there, the more I noticed this one guy who was sitting at a bench a ways away from me. Every time I looked over in that direction, he was looking at me. At one point, he stood up and moved sort of out of my view. A few minutes went by, and not long after that, I all of a sudden saw the man approaching me. He sat down right next to me on the bench I was sitting on. He didn't say hi or anything, he was just sitting there. He was also wearing an almost winter jacket and a hat, even though it was very warm and sunny. I certainly didn't know him, and as we were both just sitting there looking around, things started to feel very awkward. I decided to try to make some friendly conversation with the man, and I turned and said hi. He said hi back to me, and I asked him which dog was his. The man paused for a few seconds, and then said it was running around somewhere. He seemed sort of sketchy to me, and I was wondering if he even had a dog here. We both kept sitting there in silence for a few more minutes. Out of the corner of my vision, it seemed like the man kept looking over at me and staring. It got too uncomfortable for me, and I got up and went over to get Zoe. As I walked over, I could sense the man staring at me still. I picked up Zoe, and we walked out of the dog park. As soon as I left, I saw the man walking out behind me. I was becoming more and more concerned about this guy. I didn't know who he was, but he was just really sketching me out. I walked through the parking lot they had in the entrance, and when I did, I noticed the guy get into a car. Sure enough, he didn't have a dog with him. I then left the parking lot and went to the sidewalk that I would take back to my apartment. I was hoping the guy would just drive away and leave, but when I was walking, I noticed his car start to approach us. He pulled over slightly in front and rolled down his window. Then he asked if I needed a ride. I told him no, I was fine and I didn't need one. He asked me where I was going, and I started walking away, pretending like I didn't hear the guy. As we walked on, I noticed he was driving his car slowly down the road at the same speed that I was walking. It was super creepy. At one point, he sped up a little bit and then pulled over again, but this time he was a good 50 feet ahead. When I saw this, I really didn't want to walk past him again, and I decided to just cross the road right then and there. Luckily, no other cars were coming at the exact moment, and I was able to. When I crossed the street, I immediately went around another corner, and from there, I was out of the man's sight. I quickly went back to my apartment after that. In the days that followed, I soon forgot all about the sketchy guy at the dog park. But less than a week later, I read on the internet that there had been an attempted abduction in the neighborhood, and when I read more into it, it was a short ways from the dog park, very close to where the man had been following me. I got the chills when reading about it. I realized how lucky I was, and that it was most likely the same guy. I take my dog for a walk on most days. He's a golden retriever and always likes getting out of the house. Whenever I mention the word walk, he gets all excited, and I remember a few months ago, I left my house one early evening to go for a walk with him. We live in a pretty crowded but typical neighborhood with lots of houses. Because of this, my dog doesn't have a whole lot of space to run around in the yard, so I try to walk him as much as I can. When I left that night, it was sort of getting dark out, but I didn't really care. I knew the neighborhood well, and it wasn't dangerous or anything like that. In the whole time I had been living there, I didn't know of anything strange that had ever happened, and it was generally pretty quiet. I walked my dog around the block. It usually took about 30 minutes or so if I had to guess. And when I was arriving back in front of my house, I noticed that it looked like there was somebody standing at my front door. I was still a ways away, so I couldn't tell who they were, but at this hour, I didn't know why anybody would be there. I didn't get a whole lot of people at my front door anyways, so this was really strange. I stopped where I was and watched. The person was just standing there at my front door with his back to me. I was hoping my dog wouldn't see the guy and start barking. I backed up just a little bit, but kept watching the man. Eventually, I saw him walk down the steps, and I thought he was going to walk away, but instead, he walked back around the side of my house towards the backyard. I kept watching, but he didn't come back. A few minutes went by, and I decided to go inside. I figured that maybe the guy was going to the street behind my house, but I did have a bad feeling about it. I got inside my house and went into the kitchen to cook some food. I was planning on making some tacos and was starting to prepare my cooking area. When I was doing so, I had to open my pantry door to get some ingredients. As soon as I opened the door, I saw the man standing there right inside, staring at me. I slammed it back shut and immediately ran out of the room. I grabbed my dog by the collar as I ran through the living room, and we went into the bathroom down the hall. When we got inside, I locked the door immediately. I listened and heard the guy walking around the house. I wanted to call the police, but I didn't have my phone. I had left it laying on the countertop. I felt horrible when I realized that. I had no idea what I was going to do and just hoped that this guy wasn't dangerous. I heard him walk around and occasionally make some noises. Eventually, his footsteps got closer. He ended up walking past the bathroom I was in the hallway and going to where my bedroom was. When he did, I picked up my dog and ran out to the kitchen area. When I got there, I realized the guy had taken my phone though, because it was gone. I opened the back door and ran out with my dog all the way to my neighbor's house. I knocked on their door, and thankfully they answered. I told them everything, and they were nice enough to call the police for me. We waited on their front porch, and when the police arrived, they searched my house, but never found the guy anywhere. When I went back in, a few things were missing, including my phone. I had to buy a new one after that, but all in all, my dog and I were just fine.